Hello, it's me again. As promised, here is the live that I mentioned earlier in the week. Basically, I'm going to share today what mindset to use or to employ and what skill to master, because as I mentioned on my post on Facebook, I don't think I did it on my Instagram because I record my videos here. For the time being, that will change eventually as I figure some stuff out. Well, anyhow, I mentioned if you're not growing, you're dying. And to consider for just one moment, you don't know what you don't know. And a key problem, or one of the key problems, is that we think we know, when in actual fact we don't. How can I say this from the perspective of direct experience in working, developing myself and my mindset, and also the work I do as a coach and those with clients that choose to work with me, that when we're a spectator as opposed to a participant in life, we tend to operate on autopilot, mindlessness, which is why I speak about the things, or talk about the things, or speak to these things around the wellness arena, happiness and mental fitness, because there's connectivity there, an invitation to take yourself off of our autopilot and to be more conscious of your impact on self and others, and I will explain more as I go on. So I'm going to dive in. The symptoms, there's many symptoms we can see, and I would consider for yourself, because I hope you're taking what resonates, let go of what doesn't. If it doesn't apply, let it fly, so the saying goes. I think I got it wrong on one of my recent lives of late. No matter, but symptoms I'm seeing is compassion fatigue, outsourced thinking. Why do I see that? Why do I say that? Over reliance on AI. I'm actually seeing how there seems to be a promotion of aspects of AI that is actually divorcing people from accessing their critical thinking, their logic and reasoning, which is why I spoke about this on previous lives. I'm going to invite you to take a look at that. I also mentioned, I haven't touched on it yet because I believe there's many people in this space already talking about it. Dark psychologies, in particular narcissism, and unhealthy behaviours and copes. Ultimately, lower nature behaviours which are not actually helpful. They're definitely not helpful for self, definitely not helpful to others, and it has an impact, because I also mentioned on previous lives about the law of cause and effect, and also karma. So I would invite you to take a deeper look at those. What I'm talking about there specifically is universal laws. So I've written notes. Hopefully I'm not going to be any longer than an hour. Knowing me, I probably will. So let's get to it. I mentioned on the previous live, I invite you to revisit that when you get a chance, to remember the artist's paintbrush. This will hopefully come to more sense as I talk, as I go on. I didn't quite complete, I realise now, when I was talking about a specific mindset, which is engineering mindset, and applying it with an artist's paintbrush. So think of the principles of art, which is balance, contrast, emphasis, movement, pattern, rhythm, unity and variety. So have that, if you're taking notes, in your mind, so that you can see for yourself why it's an inner job. It's not things outside of you. It is very much inner game for your outer game to work in a way that works for you, not against you. So I've made the point before, you got to know what to stop wasting your time on. So critical, especially if you're interested in developing yourself, if you're interested in growing, improving and becoming a better person. And that will, of course, influence and shape the world as it is. Because at the moment when you operate unconsciously, you are operating in ways where you may not be present to your impact. And if you want to impact positively, my suggestion here is that you work on the things that I'm suggesting to understand the world you live in, really get to understand it. And as, of course, I'm a coach dedicated to working, supporting women, what it is to become a woman, which is free from what has been presented to us, what it is to be feminine. I invite you to take a look for yourself what I mean by that, free from the masculine perspective of what it is, because promise you it's flawed. But I'm inviting you to take an approach which I'm suggesting as a mindset, so that you begin to see things differently. And mastering self within it, it's an inner job. It's nothing external. I can't stress that enough. So that you understand how you're showing up. How you're showing up. What do you mean, Karen? The control. It's understanding the control and controlling your thoughts, emotions, feelings, actions, behaviours, and habits. Because that is you, that is on you. So life is your greatest teacher. So there goes, become a student of life. Because as I mentioned earlier, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know. I missed the last bit. You don't know. So establishing mental clarity from a wellness perspective is leaving the mental and emotional baggage of the past and loosening or even dismantle your fears of the future, which normally manifests as anxiety, the latter depression, and overwhelm. I would also add there in terms of the future, all the things that's going on. So fear, an acronym for you, false evidence appearing real. Understanding if you're in your past and you're ruminating, for example, going over past stuff, it's valid, don't get me wrong. But if you haven't got to the root causes, the why, it's going to shape how you perceive the world now, and you're possibly making decisions from that space. So that's something to unlearn and relearn. And in the future, you could be also making decisions based on fear, self-doubt. Just consider that for yourself for one moment. In other words, you are not present. You're not in the here and now, because that all that matters, the here and now. So as it's the new moon and also a solar eclipse, it's the invitation to leave the relationships, ideas, thoughts, emotions, beliefs, habits that no longer serve you. And what I'm talking about here is taking 100% accountability, and that is controlling what needs to be controlled, which is self, controlling self and making it better. That's 100% responsibility, so that we don't get to blame, complain, justify, deflect, project any of those things. We don't get to do that if you're taking 100% responsibility for everything that happens in your life, because it is you. And responsibility, 100% of responsibility, your actions. So it is deciding what you want to take with you in your future and what should be left behind. So think of it in terms of self-regulation, self-mastery. The mindset, and I've been dropping clues, student being, and if life is your greatest teacher, is the beginner's mindset. And growth comes from accepting what cannot be changed, and the courage to change what you can. I'm quoting here, in my own words, the Serenity Prayer, and the wisdom is knowing the difference. And to get to that, it is adopting a beginner's mindset, because you cannot change what you are not aware of. The definition of insanity, I've said it a few times, I can never say it enough, is doing the same thing expecting a different result. I invite you here to take a look for yourself, which is reflection. Reflect, where is it possible that you are doing the same thing expecting a different result? I know for me, when I took a look at my environment, for example, and recognising some patterns that were occurring for me that resulted in certain behaviours of mine and habits, that I was able to make choices to reframe and to take a real close, hard look at what was the underlying causes. And it did take some work, because it's not a one and done, it's continuous, it's ongoing. There needs to be a commitment, there needs to be a discipline aspect that will help you support uncovering, unpacking the baggage that I mentioned. If you're going to let go of stuff, you really need to take a look at your own behaviours, your own habits, your patterns and the cycles that you're participating in, to recognise that you are actually choosing those things, and you can make a decision to choose differently. So it's okay to work on yourself. Take this as your permission slip. If you're not quite ready to give it to yourself, it is also okay to change your mind. Because I know I've changed my mind about a lot of things on the basis of being faced with new facts. So a mark of wisdom, which is very feminine, is refusing to let fear and admitting that you were wrong to stop you from getting it right. I'll say it again. A mark of wisdom is refusing to let fear of admitting, sorry, I'm saying it correctly this time, you were wrong to stop you from getting it right. Hence, beginner's mindset is an appropriate mindset for you to adopt to move through changes. Barrier when we're talking about mindset, in particular beliefs, is convincing somebody to change their belief. It is notoriously challenging. I can attest to that. Convincing somebody to change their beliefs, because they've come from somewhere. Some inherited, some from the experiences we've had of the past. I've gotten to mention another symptom, sorry, it just popped into my head. When I mentioned some symptoms and I said about compassion fatigue, and now I forgot to mention protection of ego or egos. So I'm not going to go into the depth of that, but what I would say is see what there is for you, because sometimes what we're defending is our egos instead of accepting the truth of the matter, the whole truth, because there's two sides. Always remember that. There's two sides. So as I mentioned, and I can attest to this as a coach, I've had to go through a lot of blocks, a lot of obstacles. I'm still going through them. It doesn't stop. I can see with some of the stuff I'm doing as I develop myself and I work with professionals to support me with that, we are remarkably resistant to changing our minds, even faced with contradictory evidence. And I'd just like you to sit with that for a moment and see what's there for you in your own experience. I'm not talking about looking at others, because there is a tendency when I talk about change, we think other people are the ones that need to change, when in actual fact, it's you. That's the work, you. When I say dark psychologies, as in how people manipulate others, exploit others, which, if you don't get your mind right, you will be controlled by others. And I'm seeing it all the time. And it's interesting to observe how other people do it, having known it being done to me, and to work consciously on rooting out and dissolving my participation in dynamics that weren't healthy for me. And it's ongoing. Again, all points to a beginner's mindset as you unlearn and relearn what you need to do, and referring back to the principles of art. So you've got the contrast, you've got contrast, you've got emphasis, you've got balance. Hopefully you're relating, connecting the dots for yourself. So I'm going to quote Einstein here. The measure of intelligence is the ability to change. And a motto I hope will land for you: ain't nobody to change but self. Changing others, let it go. Really let it go. The more you see from a different lens, a perspective, and not from a faulty one. So again, see for yourself, which is going to take work for you to develop. And I want to implore you to give yourself grace, patience, compassion, and empathy for your experience, because you're going to bump up against stuff and you might start to see things and it's going to cause discomfort. It's inevitable. So at this point, I have resources available. They're in my Linktree, depending on where you see this message. You can also get in touch with me if you're interested in getting deeper, so that I can help guide, support, and challenge. When I say challenge, is challenge your beliefs about the situations, your experiences, the events, and what you've made them mean, so you can start to reframe them or start to change your mind about things, so that you can start to operate differently in the world. Because trust me, the world is changing really fast. And support mechanisms are being, the ones that are in place are being stripped away from you. And I don't want you to be in a position where you're lost, you don't have the clarity, you don't have purpose, you don't have intentionality going on. Because if you don't, you're going to be vulnerable to others that are going to want to control and manipulate you. And it's not going to bode well for you in the long run. Just take a look at the results in your life as a place to look. So what is mindset? Because I've mentioned it a few times, and I've also realised I haven't given the education piece around what it means. It's the collection of beliefs and attitudes that shape how you perceive yourself, others, and the world around you, ultimately influencing your thoughts, feelings, and behaviours. And this matters because of the impact on self and others. So you could be indulging in things, unhealthy coping mechanism, unhealthy behaviours that are contributing to your experiences. And this is where you start to take a step towards taking 100% accountability and responsibility for what happens in your life, because you've played a part in it, whether you want to see it or not. Which is why, again, compassion, empathy, patience, because there's times you'll get it wrong, you'll have the missteps, you'll have the failures, you're going to have self-doubt, you're going to have fears coming up for you, which is normal, that is okay. But what is required of you, which is masculine, discipline, work ethic. I'm trying to remember the other, consistency, commitment to purpose. And when you unpack that inside of feminine energy, which is creative, which is wisdom, which is intellect, you will become a powerful force. So I'm going to backtrack to mindset, because how it ultimately influences your thoughts, feelings and behaviours. It determines how you interpret and respond to situations, events and circumstances. We are meaning machines. The brain has to have meaning, which is why we are invited to control the matter, mind over matter. And I'm just going to mention quickly here, fixed mindset, growth mindset. Coaching space is all about the growth mindset. And when I work with my clients, I adopt certain models to help them bridge where they are and where they want to go. So the growth mindset is the ability to develop through effort and learning. And again, you cannot do that unless you're a student. You cannot do that unless you have a beginner's mindset, because you don't know what you don't know what you don't know. But we like to think we know. And I have to admit, doing the deeper work on myself, I've realised there's so much I don't know. I don't know. The more I know is the more I realise I don't know. Could it be the same for you? Ask yourself that question. It's also important to remember mindset is not fixed, because this is neurology. When we have new experiences, we rewire the brain. And it's also the willingness to change existing beliefs. And again, when we see what beliefs we're bumping up against, so if there's an outcome you're trying to achieve and you're not achieving it, I mean, there is more to it, but on a base level, for the purposes of the context we're talking about here, it's going to be linked to a belief or an attitude you have. And when you work back from that and you spot the belief, like, for example, I'm not good enough, I'm not enough, for example, you can fix that. But you also need to affirm that belief as you progress the changes you need to make. to challenge, are you hearing me? To challenge the belief you're not enough. You're not enough. The work never stops. I don't want to put you off because it is insightful, but it's also beautiful depending on how you look at it, because I've made significant changes in a short space of time, and there's also changes that took longer to become apparent to others. If you followed me long enough, you'll be able to see for yourself. I walk my talk. So, reference again, mindset, the importance of it impacts motivation, resilience, the ability to achieve goals, to achieve desirable outcomes. And look for yourself, where is it that you are operating where you could possibly have a fixed mindset? You can't be changed. You're unwilling to see a different perspective. You're stuck, you're blocked, and you're also getting undesirable outcomes, results. And because you're attached, you're dependent, despite the facts looking at you in your face, you still choosing, you're participating. This is the seriousness of what I'm talking about, which is why beginner's mindset is a great place to start on your journey. And I also have a community with resources, daily habits, to help support you with that, because I know what I'm talking about. I've been there. I have direct experience. I know how difficult it is to adopt healthier habits, healthier copes. I know. Okay. So what is a beginner's mindset, Karen? I'll just take a bit of water here. It involves approaching situations, ideas and tasks with an open, curious and unjudgmental perspective. Open, curious, unjudgmental perspective. Free from any preconceived notions or expectations. Interesting that, isn't it? Interesting. So I'm going to leave that portion there and move on to the skills. This skill. The adoption of self-regulation, because as I mentioned, there ain't nobody to control but self. And that is controlling behaviours, emotions and thoughts to achieve long-term goals. Because until you develop self-awareness and mastery of self, things like impulsivity, I've mentioned this on the previous live, I invite you to look at it. Reactivity, think of it as emotional management, will hinder your capacity to adapt to change, because change is a constant. You can't stop it. It's going to happen around you anyway. So I invite you to participate in your life. Participate. And one of the strategies to improve whilst you're developing your skills is a useful one that I've worked on, is mindfulness, and I also have a space, a community for that, which I've committed to dropping in content twice a month and seeing how it goes, because I believe it's manageable for now in the context of what I've got going on as I develop myself. Because remember, this is what I'm doing I'm doing it to support, but it's limited because there needs to be reciprocation, there needs to be equanimity, and there also needs to be investment, not investment in me, investment in self. And that's where you work with me one-on-one or in a group setting, and that requires investment, because you can gather all this information, but information remains information until you turn it into knowledge. And turning it into knowledge requires you to take action and integrate and embody those things, which is why I'm going to reference walking the talk is actually doing the very things. And we can get into a space where we think we gather all this information, and you're also going to have some biases that will impact how you comprehend and work with. And that's why you need to work with professionals. I'm not just saying with me, there are plenty out there, but I do believe in what I do. And I also can speak from direct experience where I've gathered the information, not had necessarily the comprehension, and didn't understand why it worked, because there's layers to the thing. There's layers, and as you make changes, this is coming from the work I've done on myself, navigating challenge, which invariably comes up, navigating unforeseen circumstances and challenges that can get in your way. The difference with me is I get over them quicker and quicker every time. I also do reflection, introspection, I journal, I reference, I study, I educate on myself, on my gaps, I develop my skills. I go to the beginner's mindset when I know I don't understand something or I'm challenged by something. What beliefs are in operation? How am I showing up? What is my part in the problem, so that I can start to work back and stop doing the things that are contributing to it. Mindfulness is a great way to develop self-awareness. And it's also knowing when you're dysregulated. What do you mean, Karen? It's been a while since I spoke about it. I'm not going to touch on it at length or in depth, because I'm going to wrap up, because I think I've given a lot away. So those that are watching, thank you. I appreciate if you would give me a like, comment and share and support my work. Because as I said, I've mentioned it, I am going to revisit how I share my content, and it might mean that I will put it in specific spaces, and it will also mean, due to lack of reciprocation, that might mean that I will also consider whether, as I niche down, because I'm looking to do that and speak to a specific person, and I develop in doing so, this stuff might not be so readily available. So support my work, I'm asking. Because you're watching, freeness comes with a certain spirit. And I would invite you to consider that nothing in life is for free. Okay, so I'll get off the pulpit. So I'm going back to the point about dysregulation, because I did go off from track. To know when you're dysregulated, which is fight, flight, freeze, fawn. And how do you know when you're dysregulated? Operating from the amygdala, the back of the brain, instead of the front executive cortex. It's understanding how you're responding in a way that's not serving you, that's driving you to retreat, driving you to protect your ego, for example, protecting something that is actually hit a nerve, triggered, maybe a physicality thing is when you're not breathing deeply, you're anxious, you're up in your head and you're disconnected from your body, so you're not actually noticing your breathing is shallow or it's rapid, or there is another indication that's not coming up for me. Maybe I'll come back to it if I don't. Look for yourself. This is an invitation to be reflective. Or you're pleasing, you're doing something to please somebody else at your own detriment. So consider those points for yourself. So I've only just touched on it a little bit. So I'm not going to wrap up because my voice is starting to feel strained, and I'm going to honour myself at the moment. I've given a lot. I'd invite you to take notes or maybe review. Also take a look at previous videos. Hopefully you're feeling, or you're considering, you're thinking about the commonalities and some of the stuff I'm saying. I'm going to end on this note. Technology is not designed to support or make way for your rest. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for you that joined me on the live. Please do like, comment and share. I know people share my videos. I appreciate you, but I also need you now to actually actively support my work in other ways. So that's me done, and I'll catch you next week.